What's going on, guys? Welcome back to shop. It's a nice cold day outside, and we've actually got a little snow on the ground, and I thought, what a great time to make a few more snowflakes melt and just come out and talk about things that people don't like me talking about, like what's going on in Ukraine. And is Ukraine part of, or maybe it is the beginning of World War III? Because China is already openly talking about, hey, once this is done in Ukraine, we're going to come in and take Taiwan. So these people like Xi Jinping and Vladimir Putin, they must smell blood in the water or weakness in the air. That's my theory. I believe there was a reason that hardly anything happened, hardly any expansions happened coming out of Russia as far as Ukraine relations during the time of Donald Trump's presidency. But now that we have this weakling that's got dementia in office, and it's obvious he's a puppet to everyone, not just us, all of the rest of the world. He's embarrassed us on the national stage so many times, I can't even count them anymore. The number one embarrassment was the pullout debacle in Afghanistan, leaving them all of those weapons, all of those things. He's shot us in the foot in our own energy policies by cutting off the Keystone Pipeline, doing all of this other just idiotic stuff. The only reason you would do this sort of thing is if you were trying to cripple the United States of America's economy. And that's what I believe is going on here. So, of course, it makes sense that Biden is going to go over and stir his toe in business where, in my opinion, we have no business messing with Ukraine or any of their dealings. For one, unless they openly, directly ask us for our help. And for two, we already have our own borders taken care of. I think personally, the United States southern border is a much more critical crisis to the United States national security than the Ukrainian border is to the United States national security. And I just see all these people, it always brings out all of these people from the right and the left that are hawks. They're war hawks. They don't like to admit it, but any chance they get to start a war, they do it. And Biden went over and started meddling, and the next thing you know, Putin responded, started building up troops. Now Putin's going to invade. It's a full-blown invasion in the Ukraine. You can only push somebody so far before they're going to finally push back. Maybe, perhaps, if Ukraine didn't have all these weird deals going on with the Biden family, like the Burisma deal with Hunter Biden and stuff like that, and all the kickbacks going back to the big guy, whoever the big guy is. See, we're not really allowed to investigate all the damning evidence that came off of the Hunter Biden laptop because, only Republicans care about that, I guess. Only people that love justice and liberty and stuff like that care about that. Certainly none of the FBI, CIA, any of these other investigatory agencies that would do investigations, they don't give a shit about the Hunter Biden laptop. Back when it first came out, if you talked about it, they were banning people for talking about that sort of stuff, kicking people off platforms for exposing what was actually truth coming out of the Hunter Biden laptop. They didn't want that to be known for some reason. Probably the same reason that they don't want people looking into the results of what happened last time around. Can't say too much about that, but I think you know what I'm talking about. How Biden got in. That's as much hints as I can drop about that. So, guys, elections have consequences. For 4 years, we had a peacetime president. He didn't go start any new wars or anything like that. And then, yet, old man, demented Joe Biden's crazy ramblings looks like it's going to get us into World War III. And what's really scary to me is crazy Uncle Joe Biden is the one that's at the helm, or appears to be at the helm. Who knows really who's pulling his strings? I have my theories. Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton, Susan Rice, George Soros, Klaus Schwab's, Bill Gates, on and on and on. Ted Turner, all these richies, all these rich, powerful elitists, the Rockefeller Group, people like that, the Rothschilds, all of these powerful elite families. That's who's behind this stuff. That's who's behind all of this stuff. I just find it so compelling that the very people that brought, oil and drilling to the market, the Rockefellers, they made their family wealth on oil. And then they turned on oil, and now they're 100% the climate change people. They're 100% renewable energy people as far as that goes. They've distanced themselves from all of their oil earnings and capital because it's no longer fashionable to do that anymore. And now they're coming out with all these ESGs, and if you don't get a good environmental or a social or governmental score, then your company just doesn't get to get loans and do business in any part of the world, because this is a worldwide deal. Complete BS. I didn't sign up for that. Sounds like a violation of the Constitution of the United States, of our sovereignty of the United States. We shouldn't be paying world taxes to some world environmental group that's going to spend this money however they want to spend it. That's what it's always been about, control. If you want to watch a really good documentary series on how this all came to be, go watch How Big Oil Took Over the World, and then watch Why Big Oil Took Over the World. These were both put up by James Corbett back when he was allowed to be on YouTube. Of course, he told a little bit too much truth, so they had to kick him off of YouTube, the platform. But you can still find him. He has his own website out there, and actually somebody re-uploaded the video, and I just watched it again earlier today. This is all about control of every kind, controlling all resources, controlling all capital, all wealth, controlling all land, controlling all reproduction, on and on and on. These people are eugenicists. They have their sights set on a certain number of people. It's written on the Georgia Guidestones. And again, I can't go into too much depth on that here on YouTube because YouTube doesn't like me telling the plan. The plan is written right there in stone for everyone to read in multiple different languages because they thought it was that freaking important. And we all know Ted Turner's the one that put that up. Or somebody in his group put that up in his name, I'm sure. But they're being all secretive about it because it's the globalist plan to take over the world. And there are two things that are I find these things very fascinating. It appears, on the surface anyways, from what I know about Russia and China, it appears that they're not totally towing the globalist New World Order rope. They're not totally on board with that. They have actually come out openly, both nations, and condemned homosexuality in their cultures. They don't want that in their cultures. And a lot of the other wokeism that's eating through the United States and the rest of the westernized world like the worst cancer you've ever heard of. That's what wokeism is. It's a cancer on society. And for whatever reason, Xi Jinping and Vladimir Putin have recognized that. Now, I realized somebody came in the comments and told me, made me aware and reminded me that Vladimir Putin is actually a member of the WEF, the World Economic Forum. And that's where all this Great Reset stuff comes from. But I read this paper that was Vladimir Putin, I believe it was 2014, don't quote me on that, but in the past several years, Vladimir Putin went to the World Economic Forum and basically was telling them, look, here's the problems. And you guys, he was going in and openly, verbally attacking their strategy for the Great Reset and telling how it wasn't going to work and why it wouldn't work. It was a very well-written paper. I thought it was pretty great. I thought it made a lot of great points that a lot of us have brought up about how this stuff takes away from countries that love nationalism and love sovereignty and want to, maintain that kind of culture, their unique culture. He talked about all the different things, the socioeconomic differences that it was going to create and the divides. And he talked about how with their plan, essentially the majority of the money was going to go into the hands of the 1%. So these are things that resonated with me, and I was like, wow, this is interesting that Putin is talking this way. Could he just be blowing a bunch of smoke? Yeah, sure, it's totally possible that he is. And again, like I said in the last video, I don't think Putin is squeaky clean. We all know he came from the KGB and has some pretty dark skeletons in his closet related to, if you're an enemy of Putin, you don't want to end up getting uranium poisoning or plutonium poison or whatever it was that one guy got and ended up dying in the hospital with some suspicious I can't remember what it was, but apparently Putin gave him some yellow cake or something like that. I don't know what the deal was, or one of Putin's people or whatever they call their KGB these days. I'm sure they have some equivalent to our CIA. And I think that's part of the problem with the being stuck in a Western mentality is that, and it's a good mentality. I love the West. Don't get me wrong. When I'm criticizing us, I'm doing it so that we'll all take a step back and look at things from a different perspective. That's the only point of this. But in the West, we tend to look at things like when we hear the KGB. Sure, the KGB was bad, but do you think for a second that other countries don't view our CIA in the same sort of a negative connotation that comes to mind when you think those three letters, KGB? Automatically, your mind goes to, oh man, dark Russia, these guys torturing people, stuff like that. Well, do you think the CIA doesn't torture people? Do you think the CIA doesn't go into countries and basically get rid of their leadership and install people, their own puppets that they can control? They do. It's obvious. They've been doing it for years and years and years. So, America's hands are no longer clean. We've been out meddling and being the world's police for so damn long, we've forgotten our most important objective in this country, and that's maintaining a country. If you don't have borders, you don't have a country. And people would ask, oh, well, there's no border on the Canadian side. We don't need that. There's no fence up there. You don't need one up there. Well, of course you don't need one up there because Canada has a somewhat equal economy than what we have. Mexico doesn't. Mexico is third world country, and any of those people that can come up here, obviously, and make money, they're going to. And I don't blame them for wanting to do that. My problem is they're breaking the law the first step they make into the country. That tells me a lot about how they're going to respect law and order and the justice system that we have in place here. I mean, it shouldn't be that shocking for you to find out that crime has skyrocketed since Biden took over. I mean, skyrocketed. And that's not a coincidence. That's not a coincidence. Biden is not a law and order president. In fact, he's a defund the police kind of guy. I don't know if he ever actually directly said that, but he's in that club of people that have said it. And again, that ought to tell you everything you need to know. But this situation in Ukraine could turn into World War III once China gets involved. And maybe they're already involved. You know, why wouldn't they be involved when Russia is their ally and here we are bringing in taxpayer-funded weapons and giving them to the Ukrainian people? Again, it would be one thing if the United States was in perfect order, but we're not. We're in disarray. We still haven't recovered from the massive Rona lockdowns and all this other stuff that's going on. We've got trucker convoys going on. The supply chain has still not come back to what it was in 2019, for sure. And maybe it never will, because I believe we're entering into a new phase. It's sort of like what the communist Soviets were back in the 80s, when you'd go to the store and there might not be very many things on the shelves there at the store, because that's what communism brings. It brings a lot of starving people. 100 million people have been killed in the name of communism. Most of them starved to death or taken out behind a building and shot in the head. So, doesn't sound like a good thing to me. And I read a speech the other day. Putin has come out and basically taken a very anti-communist stance. Again, I don't know if that's true. He could just be blowing a whole bunch of smoke. But Biden's response is he's going to send out 7,000 troops to Germany to be on standby. They're basically beating the war drums. All the people at, Lockheed Martin, Raytheon, all of these places that build weapons for the military, they're all foaming at the bit. The people like Hillary Clinton are foaming at the bit. People in Biden's camp, they love it. They want to go to war because it's a distraction from the tragedy that's going on in this country right now. That's why they want to go to war, because it'll take our minds off of the real issues here. Our borders are wide open. Our dollar is collapsing. Our supply chain is in a shambles. It still hasn't recovered fully. I mean, if you don't believe me, go try to buy parts for a tractor or something like that. I mean, just unbelievable backlogs everywhere you go. And Biden is partially responsible for that. Of course, Trump was part of the shutdown too, so he takes some of the blame as well. But one thing Trump never did was mandate everybody get something like this guy did. And I think that's one of the biggest things that Biden has done that's upset the apple cart of liberty, is he's coming in and telling people what they have to do. You can't do that in America. We're the land of the free, the home of the brave. At least we used to be, back when we had people that had spines. So, I don't know, guys. Oh, speaking of that, a little side story that just popped into my mind. I read this story the other day coming out of, I believe it was NASA, or maybe it was the U.S. military. Somebody did a big study, and they tested the spinal strength and the bone strength of the Gen Z, Gen Y, whatever they call this youngest generation. They said it was quite a bit weaker than previous generations. And that ain't a joke. This is true. And they're worried, the military's worried that they won't be able to handle, they won't have strong enough bones to handle basic boot camp. So, guys, we are in trouble. We're fixing to go to war with Mr. Magoo at the helm with his finger on the nuclear suitcase, the nuclear football. Vladimir Putin has mentioned nukes a couple of times. So, I don't know. It might be a good idea to start buying some books on how to survive nuclear fallout and things like that, because things ain't looking good. Things ain't looking good. And before you come in and say, how dare you talk about doom and gloom, well, you show me a good story that I can talk about that's real and true, and I'll love to report it. But until then, I'm going to report the truth. If you can't handle truth like this, go watch a cat video, because we don't need you coming into the comments talking about, oh, fear-mongering and this, that, and the other thing. Just go hide under your rock wherever you're going to hide, and then leave the rest of us alone. We're going to keep prepping and keep planning and try to be one step ahead of the game and try to see what's coming. That's all we're trying to do here. So let me know down in the comments, what do you guys think about all this stuff? I mean, are we going into World War III? Is this going to collapse the system? Is this the straw that's going to break the camel's back? I mean, we all see it. We all feel it. Everything's on edge right now. It's because the shit's going down. The question is, do you want to be on it, or do you want to be on a lifeboat? I just want to take a second to thank all the subscribers, new people, old people that have been here with the channel for a long time. You guys are the reasons that I keep on doing these videos like this, even at my own risk and peril sometimes. But it feels good to be able to talk to people and have open dialogue, and that's why I do this. I don't think there's nearly enough dialogue. I may not always say the things that you want me to say or that you believe in, but what I do try to do is respect people's differing opinions. You know, now if you come in and say something snarky, then I'm going to say something snarky right back to you. But if you come in with respect and say, hey, you know, I disagree and here's why, and, you know, on and on and on, you're respectful about it, then we can have a cordial back and forth conversation. Who knows? Maybe we'll actually solve some of these problems that need to be addressed. I was just telling somebody earlier today, one of the biggest things that we're missing right now is open forum debate. It's being stifled everywhere. Even shows like Joe Rogan, where he tries to have people with differing opinions on, that stuff gets censored. We are in the most dangerous times I've ever seen in the United States of America. More dangerous now than the Cold War, when we were at ultimate threat of being nuclear annihilated. More dangerous than that, because all that stuff's back on the table now, and the Russians have supersonic missiles. Let's hope they don't use them. Stock up while you can. Appreciate you tuning in. I stand for liberty. I hope you do too.